Well, as Greg Jennett just mentioned, the federal government bill to force Telstra to separate its retail and wholesale businesses has passed the lower house of Parliament, but the opposition failed to win support for any of its amendments to the bill aimed at introducing more competition to the National Broadband Network. To discuss that and the other day's political issues, including gay marriage, I was joined a short time ago from our Parliament House studio by Independent MP Tony Windsor. Tony Windsor, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, Lee.
Tonight the Parliament voted against the coalition amendments to the NBN, but would you be interested in seeing if there is a way to have more scrutiny of the NBN if it could be done without delaying the rollout?
Well, I think there's a role for the ACCC in relation to the NBN rollout, but I think we've fiddled around with this long enough. We've lost a decade in relation to movements, political activity in relation to telecommunications. I think it's time we moved on with this. I think the opposition's agenda has been very clear. Tony Abbott made statements earlier today that it was about demolishing the NBN. So I think any amendments now that they introduce have one aim in mind, and that's to delay rather than assist in terms of scrutiny or transparency. You
said there is a role for the ACCC. What do you think that role should be?
Well, they do have a role in terms of the migration of activity from Telstra into NBN. There's various roles that they have to play in terms of the conversion from Telstra into NBN, or that section of it.
And is that sufficient, do you think?
I think it will be, and obviously there's the Parliament and the people as well, and there'll be some activity in the Senate too. I think I'm hopeful that the business plan will actually be out before the deliberations go through the Senate.
So you'd like to see that business plan out then before Parliament rises for this year?
Well, I think everybody would like to see it. I'm told there's some very good results in it, so I'd be hopeful that that document would be available. I'm told that it's a live document now that hasn't gone through the Cabinet, but I think it would be appropriate if the people in the Parliament, they're the ones who paid for it, would actually have a look at it.
And has the government given you any indication on the timing of when they might release that?
Soon, and so I'm expecting next week that. Obviously, that's up to the government.
Given that some regular competition principles are being bypassed to allow this deal between the NBN and Telstra, are you worried at all that consumers could end up paying higher prices?
Well, Malcolm Turnbull's been making that point. I think the real point that needs to be made here is that in terms of competition between the various telcos, I don't have an issue with one backbone existing across the nation because, we've seen what happened with some of the television networks where they're trying to duplicate networks and those sorts of things. We also saw when John Howard was in power that there was this sort of commitment that when they sold the third section of Telstra that competition would deliver. It's obvious that it won't deliver in certain sections of the nation. So I think that, in my mind, we do need to develop a backbone, a railway line in that sense, and then let all the competitors go in terms of the delivery of retail services. So I'm comfortable with that. I know Malcolm has been suggesting that the coaxial cable in Sydney should be left as some sort of competitor, but I think it's really time we moved away from the mistakes we made in the past in terms of the separation of activity in Telstra, the structural separation. Get on with it now and get this very important piece of infrastructure rolled out.
You talk about having a backbone, but even in terms of the creation of that backbone, if there is competition that flows later relating to that or from that, what safeguards are in place so that consumers can trust that their $43 billion on this project, on the creation of this backbone, as you put it, is being efficiently spent?
Well, there's going to be sort of an equalised wholesale price rolled out, so all Australians will share in that. Some might argue that there'll be some degree of cross-subsidisation taking place. I don't have a problem with that again, particularly coming from the country. I think in terms of that rollout, we're going to need equity of access and equity of pricing in terms of the wholesale mechanism. And that'll unfold as time goes on, I guess. But I'm comfortable with where things are at.
The OECD remarks that have come out about the fact that this monopoly model might be ideal hasn't given you pause at all?
No, because I think it's had an each-way bet. It's virtually endorsed the system and said it may be better doing it a little bit this way or a little bit that way. Well, we've all got things that we could do a little bit better. The government has made a determination. It went to the polls on it. I supported it in terms of the formation of government as being one of the definitive issues, something that's very important, in my view, to country Australians. It's the one piece of infrastructure that I've seen in my public life that actually negates distance as being a disadvantage of living in the country. And it can have an enormous impact on a whole range of activities, health, education, business, just normal private activities, but also if we do move into a carbon economy, there's a whole range of activities that where savings can be made in terms of some of the teleconferencing, those sorts of real-time things that can be achieved through the optic cable, aged care, the medicine, a range of things that I think, and some of the things that I know Malcolm Turnbull argued for the Productivity Commission to look into to do a benefit-cost analysis. I think it's very difficult to do that in a circumstance when you don't know some of the services that will be delivered in the next 10 to 25 years.
Question time was pretty fractious today. You helped craft some of the new procedures for Parliament after the election, including question time reform. How do you think that's working out so far?
Oh, I think it's going well. The questions are shorter and the answers are more precise. We'll never get totally rid, and neither should we, in my view, get rid of some of the argy-bargy that takes place. But I think it's tightened up considerably. The Speaker is picking the ministers up and some of the interjectors up from time to time in relation to the standing orders. So, and the general commentary that I get, both within the Parliament and particularly from the press and quite often from the public, is that it's better than it was, and I think they appreciate the Speaker's role being a bit more, a bit freer in terms of being able to bring people back to order.
And do you think that level of independence is actually working out?
Yes, we'll give it time. I think it is. I think it's heading in the right direction. I think all of us are starting to feel a bit more comfortable in what is an unusual circumstance, that of a hung Parliament. I think the opposition is actually really starting to adapt to that process, particularly in the last couple of weeks. I thought everybody started a bit loose in the sense that they were trying to play the old game without the grass on the football field. I'm confident that it will work. I think it'll be an exciting Parliament, actually. I think there's a lot of very interesting things that are going to unfold as the next year progresses.
As we all know, of course, you were critical in helping the Gillard government return to power. How do you rate their performance so far?
Oh, I think they're settling in. I think all of us are. I think the first 3 or 4 months of next year will be the determining factor in terms of how Julia Gillard's putting her stamp on this particular Parliament. So the jury's out. I think both the government and the opposition are in that adjustment phase, and it wouldn't be an easy phase for both of them, but I think they're starting to settle into it.
The Labor figure Graham Richardson has criticised the Gillard government for lacking a vision, and that's a line, obviously, that Tony Abbott picked up on in question time today and yesterday. Can you identify a vision yet for the Labor government?
Well, I think there's a number of things. Excuse me, Lee. I think there's a number of things that are potentially visionary in a sense. The Murray-Darling arrangements, I think I'm chairing a committee that's actually looking at that. I think there's enormous potential to utilise the hung Parliament to come up with a range of recommendations that actually solve the problem but don't sell the communities on the river down the drain. I think the nature of this Parliament could really assist in delivering a solution there. I think in terms of the climate change debate, I'm also on that multi-party arrangement that's looking at that. I think if we step back and look at some of those things, who knows what will come out at the end of 12 months. I think there's a number of things happening. Well, the issue today, the National Broadband Network, as I said, I don't think there's been a bigger piece of infrastructure that'll have a lasting impact, particularly on regional Australia, but the nation itself, than that piece of infrastructure. People talk about the 43 billion. We sold Telstra for 49, I think. We had tax cuts for 3 years of 47. And a lot of people were saying to me when John Howard did that and Kevin Rudd agreed with him during the 2007 election, a lot of people said to me, and I actually surveyed the electorate, and over 80% said they wanted the money. They didn't want the hamburger and a milkshake. They wanted the money spent on hospitals and infrastructure. So I think if you could remove a bit of the petty politics from the broadband debate, I think it's probably a very significant piece of infrastructure for the future, and puts us in a competitive situation with our neighbours. There's all the productivity benefits and cost savings in terms of health and aged care and the things we talked about earlier.
Let's whip around some of the other subjects that are featuring in the political debate at the moment. What's your view on gay marriage?
Oh, well, I married a woman. I agree with the amendment that was put up last night, or the motion that was put up by Adam Bant. I think, I'll be consulting with my constituents as to what they think, and I'll be representing their view. I'll do it in the way, the similar way that I mentioned there earlier. I'll survey the electorate to find out what their view is, and I'll represent that view back to the Parliament. So
you wouldn't be representing your own personal view then?
I don't regard a conscience vote, and bear in mind I'm an independent, so every vote in a sense is a conscience vote, but it's a conscious recognition of what I believe the electorate would want, and I'd actually do that in this case as well.
And what is your...
And I think that's what we're being asked to do, is members of Parliament to go back to their constituency, ask the question, and return to the Parliament with that question. Some people get that excited. The party members get very excited. They think this is freedom, that they can give their own view. I've never had that view. I think my view is to represent the people I represent, not myself.
Nonetheless, what is your personal view?
Well, I don't have a problem, as long as it's not compulsory. I'm very happy with my wife.
Do you think that community attitudes to gay marriage have changed over the time that you've been in public life, so say, the past 20 years or so?
Well, there's same-sex relationships, are very common these days. The marriage word is the one that, if there is to be a difficulty, that may well be, the issue here. I don't have a problem with what consenting adults do. That's their business. As long as people don't interfere with my business, I don't interfere with theirs.
But do you think, though, that society's views have loosened up on that, though?
Slightly, but I think we'll find out by referring back to our constituencies. And I think it's very important that we actually do, as members, represent our constituencies, not our private views. I think this is we're not special people because we're members of Parliament. We represent constituencies, and my private views and that of my constituency may be completely different. And I've represented things into the Parliament before that I haven't personally agreed with, but that's not... I'm no technical expert on everything, and I'm there to represent my community.
Yesterday, Tony Abbott introduced a private members' bill aimed at overturning the Wild Rivers legislation in Queensland. When you were asked about this last month, you said that you didn't understand all the issues, so you weren't yet sure where you stood. Have you formed an opinion yet on that?
No, and I've met with people from the Gulf today, and I've had a number of meetings with people from the Gulf, and I've given an undertaking that I won't make a decision on that until I go up and actually talk to people on the ground. It may well be difficult for me to get there because I've got a tame river in the terms of the Murray-Darling that I've got to wrestle with through January with a committee that I'm on, but I'll attempt to do that and then make a decision. If that can't be done, well, I'll have to make a decision without going up there.
Tony Windsor, good to have your company. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Lee.